So in this webcast, I'm going to be talking about separation of church and state, and I'm gonna stay away from scripture this time around. We're just going to use some common sense logic on this one. Now, separation of church and state. Some of the myths about it are that it actually appears in the Constitution, that it's part of the First Amendment, which the First Amendment alludes to it, but it says Congress shall make no law respecting religion, and that's about as far as it goes. Separation of church and state was actually an idea that was around before Thomas Jefferson's time, and separation of church and state back then meant something different. It was the argument that the state shouldn't have any control or influence within religion. And it means something very different today. We're going to talk about what it actually means today and how it's been applied today, and the effect that it has on our communities and society as a whole. Now, in today's idea, separation of church and state means that the church isn't allowed to comment on what the state does. And although that's an impossibility, I don't know why anybody would think that. The Bible is an extremely political book, and you basically just neuter the entire religion of Christianity when you say when you bar it from speaking about politics. But let's take a look at how separation of church and state has overstretched even those boundaries. Let's look at the classroom. Now, you take a classroom full of children, a diverse group of children from all different backgrounds, all different religious and ethnic backgrounds, and they all go to class. And one day, little Billy's parents are complaining because Jimmy's praying in school and his parents are Christians, and they don't like that, and they think that influences their son in the wrong way. So they obviously don't want that going on. So first, it comes out there first that the teacher in the front of the classroom shouldn't be doing anything to encourage or influence children's religious beliefs. But then it creeps into the children, and soon enough, they're not allowed to practice their own religious beliefs that they've been raised on in school. And most people think that this is a good thing because no one religion is greater than the other, and no one's oppressing any of it. When in reality, the religion that's being forced on everybody is statism. But let's look at what this does to religion. Now, if you're a Christian and your children can't pray in school, it's pretty much a private belief for them. When it's taken out of where the majority of their public interaction with their peers is going to be. So what it becomes is religion becomes a private thing that you have to take back to your house and study privately or in your churches. It's no longer public. And what that does is that very strongly affects how religion influences you as a person. It is no longer a part of your identity. It's no longer something that is a full-time thing for you. It becomes a part-time thing first. And then eventually even the part-time aspect of it erodes away and it becomes a hobby. Which is what separation of church and state has brought to us. It has brought religions that have become hobbies to us, that aren't as serious to us. And whether or not you agree with religions on their particular set of beliefs, the problem is that when those people don't have this unifying factor of their identity, when two people don't have that, they're no longer unified. They've been divided. And this creates rifts in the community, and the very glue that holds the community together in that social aspect starts to break apart, and communities start to break down. Families start to break down. And so what we thought was oppressive was actually holding things together. If you want to debate this, that's fine. Maybe it shouldn't happen, maybe it should. But when there's nothing else left there in that gap that will bring people together in a community, what comes up into place? Well, we haven't even let anything else form up into place. The state has started overstepping its boundaries so it could dictate moral behaviors on people. which has never been their job. And so that becomes the dangers of separation of church and state. That's because it's so anti-tradition, because it views these traditions as oppressive, that oppression that they labeled incorrectly or correctly, whatever you believe, when they peel that away, the problem is it takes away part of your identity with it. And it's like ripping off a Band-Aid. Sure, you don't want the Band-Aid there, but when you pull it off, you're bound to lose some of the hairs that it was attached to as well. And that's essentially what they've done. Now, how does this affect us? Well, recently, this affected me just this morning as I went to a community meeting at a local church here, and they were talking about violence in the community. And this is one of the results of separation of church and state, because people are no longer identifying with the community around them, and it's all become about them because they don't identify with anything else. They're more prone to violence in what used to be the community. And this leads to a scary thing, because it leads to, when you had separation of church and state, you now have a weird marriage of church and state. Because I went to this meeting, as I said, it was at a local church, and armed police officers were walking around as a show of force in this meeting. And church leaders were there advocating for the state to do something. So how has this eroded religion? Well, apparently churches no longer want to place their faith in God. They want to place it in the state and local police departments to do something about violence in the community. And that's where you have to draw the line and say, wait a minute, hasn't the state become its own religion now? Hasn't the state taken the place of these community organizations like churches? Hasn't it started to overstep its boundaries and play God? Hasn't it used this void that's created violence to push its own political agenda, which currently is gun control and tyranny? So this is another installment of the Anarchist Transmission. I hope you'll enjoy this and give the subject some serious thought, and consider that there might be more reasons for religions other than oppressing people. Until next time.